Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3, and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and you're on demand. Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Winning week on Wall Street, nervous time on Main Street. Stocks did rise today, and we did see a pretty impressive weekly win across the board today. It was a big week with the easing U.S.-China trade tensions. The market's also looking at President Trump's sweeping tax and spending bill in Washington, which failed to clear a key hurdle today in Washington. New reading on consumer confidence also concerning. Consumer confidence tumbling a bit more in the month of May as the impacts of the tariff policies remained top of mind. The Consumer Confidence Survey released today showed consumer confidence hit its second lowest reading on record. We did see the Dow today pop 332 points at the bell, the S&P 500 at 42, the NASDAQ gained 99. We did see the NASDAQ notch a gain of about 7% this week. Tesla among the winners, and NVIDIA also having a big rebound. Bitcoin up around $104,000. The big news today, Moody's Ratings cutting the U.S. sovereign credit rating down a notch from AA1 from AAA, the highest possible, citing the growing burden of financing the federal government's budget deficit and the rising cost of rolling over existing debt amid high interest rates. What's top of mind for LA business owners and business leaders? We'll be talking about that with TASIA KIEFFER later this hour, advocacy manager at the Los Angeles BizFed, LA Business Federation. President Trump announcing billions of business deals coming out of the Middle East this week. We'll get reaction on that this hour, live from Middle East expert Lisa DAFTARI. But first, joining us live now, Los Angeles business leader, civic leader, and philanthropist Rick CARUSO, who is now leading the Steadfast LA initiative to rebuild the fire-damaged areas of the Pacific Palisades and Altadena. Rick CARUSO, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful to speak with you again after seeing you at the Milken Institute Global Conference last week. And based on your social media activity, you've been on the move quite a bit since then with other very important meetings focused on the City of Angels. Tell us about the latest on Steadfast LA.
Well, the Steadfast team, we're very busy. Obviously there's so much to do to get these communities of Altadena, Malibu, and Palisades rebuilt. We've had some great success in the last few days. We had developed, along with Amazon, a model to do plan checking through an AI model that will get it done within a matter of hours rather than months, which is currently happening certainly in the city of Los Angeles. And that was adopted by the state, adopted by the city, and adopted by the county. And we actually raised the money also, so there's no cost to the city to incorporate and integrate this into their system. So that's going to be a game changer for people as they try to process permits, save a lot of time and a lot of money. And we're still working on the plans for the park, for Palisades Park. We're working to design a senior center out in Altadena. We've been out in Malibu, working with the small businesses out there to support them as much as we can. And there's just a ton to do, but we are very focused on getting people back in their homes as quickly and as safely as possible. And, pushing the city and the county and the state, because we feel strongly, as I think most people do, that this has to be a public-private partnership. And government is just not equipped to move quickly. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of innovation, but we're glad to be able to be a partner with them to bring that urgency and innovation.
Last week, you released a very strong statement critical of the pace of the permits, among other things, and so forth. Only, about 30-some-odd permits up to this point. Is that starting to turn around now? And tell us what needs to be done to get this process accelerated.
Well, the messaging that's going out, by the mayor that this is the fastest recovery in the history, I don't think anybody's buying that, because it's just not true. This isn't fast. We're 100 days into this. And to have 30 permits issued for homes is pathetic. There's a backlog. The system is still jam-locked with red tape. Listen, I love Jamie Dimon's interview where he's talking about they shouldn't call it red tape anymore. They should call it blue tape. We've got to just cut through the systems here. So make it easy for people that lost their homes. I don't even see how that could be an issue or an argument. And people are desperate to get their homes rebuilt. They're desperate to get back in their community. And the mayor needs to find the leadership skills to get her management team to actually start making the moves to have things go quickly. It's not happening yet. And so we're continuing to lean in and help with that, share ideas on how to do that. And we're going to break the code eventually because we have to. And everybody in the city and the county, including Malibu and Altadena, need to hold their elected officials accountable and do what's right for these people to get back into their homes and start building homes.
On there live with Rick Caruso, who is leading the Steadfast LA initiative to rebuild the fire-damaged areas of the Palisades as well as Altadena. I know you've also spent time in Altadena. Can you give us an update on what's happening there?
Well, actually, I think the county is making a little bit more progress than the city is. I do want to do a shout-out to the Army Corps of Engineers, both in Altadena, Malibu, and Palisades. They're doing an exceptional job. They're ahead of schedule on the debris removal. One of the things that has to get done is the people that have opted out of the Army Corps, they need to start cleaning up their homes, and commercial owners need to start cleaning up their commercial business sites. Everything's got to get clean so we can start the rebuilding effort and get people back in. We have to be pushing the school districts, both in Altadena and Los Angeles, to get the schools rebuilt, both public and private schools. In Altadena, we're working hard on helping them reimagine the downtown on Lake. Our team is working on that to help the business district. As I said, we're also working on designing a senior center, which will raise the money to fund. And we're also working on the Samara homes, the first of which will go into Altadena. So that's an important thing to get people back in their community, especially people who are older or lower income who cannot afford or have the time to rebuild. We want to make sure we're giving them the support to do that. And the Samara Home program that we did with Steadfast will give people a home at no cost. And I'm really excited about that. So as soon as we get areas cleaned up, then we can start delivering those homes.
On there live with Rick Caruso, and of course the entire business community looking to your leadership here at a time when business confidence is taking a hit. I don't know if you had a chance to see the latest BizFed survey and then the consumer confidence number. Also, people obviously having a tough time dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and then on top of that, the firestorm recovery here. What's your message to the business community as well as consumers at this point?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty, that's going on in the economy. So I understand why people feel not as confident. Everything that's going on in Washington with the tariffs and the changes, there's a lot of unpredictability. Unpredictability leads to a lack of confidence and uncertainty. I wish we had more predictability and stability coming out of Washington and this White House. So I understand it, but what I've seen in our properties, we continue to have very strong attendance that's growing. We're continuing to have great demand for space from retailers and restaurants. And we're continuing to have growth in sales. So we haven't felt the impact of it yet. And obviously these things geographically are different. We're not a monolith here. I do worry about the Los Angeles region. We have been pushing businesses out. Expensive to live here, expensive housing. We have to build more housing, and we have to do it rapidly, and we have to build housing that people of lower or moderate incomes can afford. And unless we do that, we're not going to be attracting businesses and creating jobs here. We've got the lowest housing starts I think, in the last 10 years in the city of Los Angeles over the last couple of years. So we're going backwards. We need to change that. But listen, I'm bullish on Los Angeles. I think it's the greatest city in the country. If we get the right focus, we encourage businesses to grow here. We support small businesses. We need to get ready for the World Cup. That's going to be an incredible driver of business. We need to be ready for the Olympics, another incredible driver for the for businesses here. I'm very hopeful of the Los Angeles region, and I'm very hopeful on Palisades, Altadena, Malibu coming back quicker than expected, and really being model communities because everything there is going to be new. So I really encourage people to rebuild, reinvest, reopen your businesses in those communities. It will pay off mightily in the mid to long run. Some pain in the short run, but it'll be a huge win for everybody that's involved, invested, and living in those communities in the long run.
On there live with Rick Caruso. Another big thing that happened this week, the LA City Council imposing that minimum wage increase for tourism-related businesses to $30 an hour by the time the Olympics hit here. And, of course, pretty much all of the major business groups oppose this and will lead to pink slips instead of a higher minimum wage for many people here. What is your reaction to that? And as far as economic leadership coming out of City Hall, how would you assess things here at the moment?
Well, I like to have everybody make more money. Los Angeles is a tough place, we just talked about, to live in. It's an expensive place. So I'd like to see all the workers make more money. But you have to balance that with the reality of operating a business, having a business being profitable, whether that business can be competitive. What people don't understand, I think, that propose these increases is, do they look at the impact it's going to have overall? Businesses can move. Businesses can locate outside of the city of Los Angeles. Businesses can close. And if you don't believe it, look at the city budget that showed the revenue into the city has decreased. It's decreased because the rules, the laws, and the cost of doing business in Los Angeles has gotten to the point businesses are leaving. So there's less revenue coming in. You can't sustain this. What you want to do is have your workers be paid a fair and competitive wage, and then also benefit from the growth and the profitability and the success of the business they're a part of. Not to be paid a fee that forces that business to fire people or relocate. We've seen this happen in the fast food industry, in the restaurant industry. When they increase the wages, restaurants closed or moved. So we need a level of intellect, quite frankly, common sense in how we approach things, and there's a balance to these things. And common sense should rule. I believe we lost that in our leadership in Los Angeles, and we're following an ideology that's leading us down a path that is not going to have a happy ending.
On there live with Rick Caruso, and another big story this week, looks like the homeless encampment's getting national attention here, and some movement now. That announcement from the governor's office trying to clear out encampments that, of course, have strangled businesses in many cases, with encampments in front of businesses. Even Langer's Deli, which you highlighted near MacArthur Park, there, for example. What is your reaction to this, the latest move on the homeless front?
You know, the homeless situation continues to get worse. Again, the narrative is it's getting better, that there's success in that. Again, nobody believes that lives in this region, that lives in Los Angeles, that walks and drives it every day. I left our home today, and right in the median, there's homeless encampments again. And so we've got to get a handle on this. The governor did the right thing in making a call to eliminate encampments on the streets. So I'm grateful that he did that. I posted that. And the city has to start acting on it. I don't understand why they're not, how they think they're doing anything good for the communities that they are fiduciaries. They took a sacred oath to serve, or the people who are suffering on the streets. It's bad for everybody involved. It's bad for the businesses, the homeowners, and those on the street that are not getting the services they need.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Caronia.
I'm Haley Caronia. I scroll with the homies here in the live chat, and I love my long scrolls on my phone at night. The show is literally called Nightly Scroll. My screen time has reached astronomical levels, but I do it to get all of the videos and all of the content that you won't find anywhere else. I don't want to be surrounded by an echo chamber, so I hope you join me. Someone just said the show is great. Keep it up. Thank you. I will.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Caronia. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
And it's not housing first. That's a failed program. The Home Safe program that the mayor has, failed program. You need to quickly build housing for the homeless and pair it with the mental services that they need, with the drug addiction services that they need. Give them supportive retraining so they can get a job and be productive men and women back on the streets. Again, we're going down the wrong path on this. I hope they listen to the governor, follow his lead. Whether you like the governor or not is not the issue. What he did was right, giving the edict to get the homeless housed and off the streets.
On the air live with Rick Caruso, and sadly, many children are in that homeless category, especially in the downtown area. It was shocking to learn recently that about 50% of the students in some of the schools in that area are indeed homeless. And I know for many years you've been supporting Para Los Niños as well as Union Rescue Mission and other programs there specifically related to the children. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see kids coming in and out of those tents there, but a lot of loving people are there on the scene trying to help those children. What can be done about this?
Well, Frank, you're right. I mean, there couldn't be a more heartbreaking example of how our leadership has failed us. When you have children living on the streets, when you have elderly living on the streets, and that population is growing. I actually think it's the fastest growing population. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right from what I've read. And there are organizations down there, and Tina and I and the family have been very involved for 30 years. Para Los Niños. It is literally a slice of heaven in the middle of all of this hell around it, down on Skid Row, where children starting at 6 months old are well taken care of, educated. The one down on Skid Row on 6th Street that we support takes in children up to 6 years old. All of those families are at or below the poverty line. And the teachers, administrators are just saints. Incredible work is being done. We need to give the money to scale that up so more of the kids can be taken care of. There's great organizations that are doing great work. And I don't understand why our leadership, instead of wasting billions and billions of dollars that's now being investigated by the Department of Justice for misuse and it sounds like a lot of illegal things and friends being paid big salaries. It's incredible the potential corruption that's been going on with taxpayer dollars at the expense of people living on the streets. Why money isn't given to organizations that have a track record of success, like the Union Rescue Mission, getting people off the streets, giving them the help they need, and turning them back into productive citizens, which so many of the people on the streets, they want that chance again. We're not giving them that chance. But certainly children should never be allowed to live on the streets. And we have to stop it, Frank. And there is a way to do it.
Rick Caruso, is there anything else that you'd like to mention here? Obviously, a lot to talk about, and we so thank you for being so generous with your time today. And so anything else that you'd like to mention that's top of mind here heading into the weekend?
You know, we always talk about things that are going wrong or not going as well as we'd like. And, you know, just to end on a note, this really is an incredible region. We live in an amazing city. We're blessed on what we have. We've gone in the wrong direction. We've looked at polling where about 70% of the people say the leadership is going in the wrong direction. The leadership has failed us. It's a very, very high number. That can be changed. And if you take the shackles off this city, you take the shackles off the region, this city should lead the nation. This state should lead the nation. We have the resources, the smarts, the beauty of it, the ability to attract the best and the brightest. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. And so I am forever an optimist and grateful that we live in the city and we live in the state. And it will change. And we got a lot of work to do, but it's worth doing. So thank you for the opportunity, Frank. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Next Friday, we're having Fleet Week. The sailors of the United States Navy will be at the Grove next week, and we're going to celebrate them, thank them for their service. And I invite everybody to come out and give a thanks to the great service men and women of the U.S. Navy.
That's wonderful that you're doing that, Rick Caruso. Thank you very much for joining us here. We'll keep an open line to you and hope have many more conversations and maybe see you there at that wonderful occasion at the Grove and celebrate Fleet Week, which is always a big deal at the Port of Los Angeles. Rick Caruso, we thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon. We wish you and your family a wonderful weekend.
All the best, Frank. Thank you. Same to you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much. Thank you, Rick Caruso, joining us live here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. What a week. What a week. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Always great to talk to Rick Caruso live here. If you missed any of that, go back to the Mottek On Money podcast. It'll be posted right after the show airs live here this evening. Big news today, Moody's rating agency cutting the U.S. credit rating, sovereign credit rating, down one notch from the highest possible, citing the growing burden of financing the federal government's budget deficit and the rising costs of rolling over existing debt amid high interest rates. Moody's, by the way, had been the holdout among the ratings agency, keeping U.S. sovereign debt at the highest credit rating possible and bringing the agency in line with its rivals. Standard & Poor's had downgraded the U.S. credit rating to AA positive from AAA back in August of 2011. That was big news when that happened. I remember being on the air that day. And Fitch Ratings also cut the U.S. rating to AA plus from AAA in August of 2023. Stocks ended the day higher today, with the Dow closing higher by 332 points, settling at 42,655. The S&P 500 at 42, and the Nasdaq of 99. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.48%. The volatility index slipping 3% today. Gold hovering at $32.05 an ounce. Silver at $32.43. Crude oil at $62.48 a barrel. Checking the cryptos now, Bitcoin down about 500 at 103,504, Ethereum at 2,554, and Doge at the moment at 22 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Tough announcement this week from the largest business group in the Los Angeles area, the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed. Their latest pulse poll of businesses here, business leaders here, shows business optimism in LA is basically at an all-time low. Joining us live now is TASIA KIEFFER, Advocacy Manager at the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed. TASIA, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Hi, Frank. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful to speak with you, and certainly your founding president, Tracy Hernandez, and founding chairman, David Fleming, have shared this important poll result over many, many years. So it's great to have you with us here, and you're the expert on this. So take it from the top and tell us about the results of the latest poll.
Yeah, so something that you've already pointed out that I want to highlight that we learned is that business is at the highest uncertainty that we have seen ever in our pulse poll results at 46%. It's actually higher than it was even during COVID, which was really shocking. And it's also the lowest optimism that we have seen in years at 29%.
That is very big news. And tell us about some of the big issues that are facing LA businesses. What's top on the list this year?
Yeah, so top of the list, per usual, is taxes and fees, which has been a trend. It's usually number one for the business community, and it was number one last year. And then second is homelessness, which is up as a priority at number two, whereas last year it was number three of a concern. And then number three is actually government regulation and compliance, which is pretty shocking, actually, because it moved from number 6 concern to number 3 this year. And then 4 is that cost of electricity and gas, which moved up from number 7 last year of a concern to number 4. And then this is kind of a good thing, but crime, it still is in the top 5 of concerns for the business community, but it did move down from number 2 last year to number 5.
Go right down the list. What's after that?
Yeah, so after that, it is inflation and then interest rates and the minimum wage increases and affordability. So when you really look at the top 10 concerns for the business community, you're really seeing a trend that things are not affordable, which is super concerning. And the reason why this matters in particular is because business is what makes California work as a whole. And when our business community struggles, that also means that our local economy is struggling as well, which means it's a struggle for the average Californian consumer as well.
On the air live with TASIA KIEFFER, the advocacy manager at the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed, giving us the results here of the latest LA BizFed Pulse poll, showing once again taxes and regulations at the top of the list, taxes and fees, and homelessness at number 2. Among the movers and shakers you talked to there, with homelessness back in the spotlight this week, with the governor making the announcement this week to clear encampments, and obviously this has been an issue for quite some time here, impacting businesses. What is what's being said there at BizFed about the homeless issue?
Yeah, the homelessness issue, it comes up often. I mean, it deters tourism, one, in our community, which then, negatively impacts the business community. LA in particular really runs on tourism. And so when people are coming here and they're visiting and they're seeing people that are unhoused, it really does have a detrimental impact on our small businesses. And just with the World Cup coming, with the Olympics coming, we appreciate that the governor wants to make it a priority to really focus on improving the homelessness issue, but honestly, it's been hard to be optimistic because we haven't seen very much change. And as you can see, it's becoming a growing concern. It's not going down as a concern, unfortunately.
Of course, Los Angeles Business Federation is the voice of business, strengthening the voice of business here in Southern California. And what about turning things around here? I know you do trips to Sacramento as well as Washington and indeed Los Angeles City Hall. Oftentimes business concerns like these fall on deaf ears. You're doing a great job advocating for the business community here. What is your message to the leadership here?
Yeah, so we are a massive, diverse business organization that represents over 400,000 employers and 5 million employees just across Southern California. And we advocate, as you mentioned, on all levels of government, whether it's a city issue all the way up to Washington, D.C. We actually have a trip coming up to Sacramento in June where we hope to continue to advocate for our biggest concerns, and we really hope to continue to be movers and shakers on these really important issues.
And certainly we had another tireless champion of business here in Los Angeles, Rick CARUSO, on the air just a few moments ago, and encouraged optimism here. And obviously it's been an uphill fight, right, to make L.A. more business-friendly, and the awards that are given out recognizing the cities here in Los Angeles County on their business friendliness. Rarely does the city of Los Angeles get that recognition. What do you think is going to take to turn L.A. around from a business-friendly standpoint?
Searching for an inside look at the people, stories, and passion that fuel the state of soccer in America, the United States Soccer Federation will be launching the all-new U.S. Soccer Podcast. Episodes will go beyond the field with players, coaches, and legends to bring you honest conversations and untold stories. This is where soccer will come to life. The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platforms.
Absolutely. I mean, to turn around for the city to be more business friendly, they need to hear the business community out and our concerns, especially when we're sharing these real personal stories of the business community being impacted by negative policies. So we always encourage collaboration. We're willing to work and to compromise, but they need to be willing to listen as well.
For anyone that wants to connect with you on your efforts and connect with LA BizFed, the Los Angeles Business Federation, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so the best way is to follow us on social media. It's at BIZFEDLA. And then also you can visit us on our website at bizfed.org, bizfed.org. We also host bi-weekly fire recovery task force meetings where we bring the business community, elected officials, nonprofits, and the community in general to aid in the fire recovery. We actually met recently with Rick Caruso's group, Steadfast LA, and heard about all the work that they're doing for the Palisades recovery. And so if anyone would like to support our work in that, we encourage you to donate on our website, bizfed.org.
Wonderful, Tasia. Well, thank you very much. Great to have you on the air with us here, and look forward to your updates. And certainly you have our support here. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Have a great weekend. Tasia KIEFFER, Advocacy Manager at the Los Angeles Business Federation, LA BizFed. And now out to the freeways we go here in 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues. 790 KBC. President Trump announcing billions of dollars in business deals coming out of the Middle East this week and his whirlwind Middle East tour. In fact, trillions of dollars. The president announcing investment agreements with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates worth more than $2 trillion for projects in the areas of defense, aviation, and AI, among other ventures, during his trip this week to the Middle East. And joining us live now, Middle East expert Lisa DAFTARI, editor of the Foreign Desk, who's been tracking all these developments. Lisa, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
What stands out to you among the deals here? Qatar, for example, it was announced will buy more than 200 Boeing jets worth $96 billion. That was among the bigger deals, and right down the line here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is tremendous in terms of using diplomacy in very unique ways. This is something that brings in prosperity for the United States. It creates jobs. It creates opportunities. It brings business back home. And this is really the epitome of the America First agenda. So in that regard, we see open arms with moderate Middle East countries welcoming Donald Trump, raising the American flag, lighting up the Burj Khalifa, and really making America great again, as his campaign promised and his presidencies have promised. This is, in some ways, a continuation of the Abraham Accords. He even alluded to adding more countries as signatory to the Abraham Accords. This is the way forward for the Middle East. I will caution, however, you mentioned Qatar, for example. Not every one of these countries is a one-size-fits-all opportunity when it comes to the United States. The old saying goes, trust but verify. In this case, I would say don't trust, but definitely verify. I think we need to keep our eyes on these countries to make sure that, if they do want to play along, if they do want to be a part of that prosperity, they cannot be unloading their own agendas and launching influence campaigns like we see in the case of Qatar, for example, with billions of dollars invested here on American soil in influence campaigns, similar to Russia and China, Iran's regime, all having influence campaigns here on American soil. We have to be very much aware of what's going on with these investments. What does it come, what comes with it? With regards to creating, opportunity, giving ourselves that space in the Middle East, we're also taking away the opportunity for China and Russia to squeeze their way in. And we're also, most importantly, with regards to the region, we're boxing out Iran's regime, which has, carried its own agenda forward with hegemonic goals in the region to export its brand of Shiite Islam throughout the Middle East. I know Saudi Arabia and all these moderate Arab states are very much keen on stopping Iran's regime. So while the United States is busy at the negotiating table with Iran's regime, in the meantime, we are using other diplomatic tools to diminish their influence and their power, including a maximum pressure campaign, including sanctions, and now surrounding them with countries that have now aligned themselves with the United States.
On the line with Lisa DAFTARI, editor of the Foreign Desk and Middle East expert. And President Trump delivered a powerful speech while on his tour there, which laid it on thick against Iran and vowing that it will never have a nuclear weapon and so forth. What were some of the big takeaways there, and what do you think the next step will be in these Iran nuclear talks?
Yeah, Iran, obviously, the regime being very keen on getting into a nuclear deal. You wouldn't know it based on the headlines because they continue to saber rattle and and chest thump and be the rogue element that they are. Look, if you're asking me, I have worked on the Iran file for way too long to believe that they will ever change their behavior. They will always be duplicitous. They will always lie. They will never be transparent about their weapons procurement. And they will continue to put money, whatever money they have, into terror proxies and obviously continue with their human rights abuses at home. Look, the Iranian people don't want this regime, and that is across the board very much a very popular sentiment to the anti-regime. They're not happy with the prospect of the Trump administration getting into another deal with the regime. They believe that this is throwing them a lifeline. That being said, the Trump administration, they're not stupid. They know exactly what the nature and the DNA of this regime is. They're asking for total dismantlement of their nuclear program, which Iran's regime really won't say yes to, I don't believe. And if they do, well, I hope that there's a lot of verification that really holds them to account regardless. And again, the other tools of the diplomacy toolbox will also be in effect. They will continue to monitor them. They will continue the maximum pressure campaign, continue the sanctions, and not let them off the hook, because we really need to diminish them. We need to not give them the money and the billions of dollars that was given to them in the Biden and Obama eras that they put into terrorism. So they're funding Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So I think it will always be the case that the Trump administration understands what kind of snakes that they're dealing with and will continue to monitor them, even though they are approaching this from a friendly place of diplomacy. They don't want to use the military option. That option still exists on the table and part of the toolbox. It remains there.
Lisa Daftari, I wish we had more time. We'll have to stop there. Thank you very much for that thorough assessment of all of the epic developments this week in the Middle East with President Trump during the whirlwind tour and coming away with more than $2 trillion in business deals in that region. Lisa Daftari, editor of the Foreign Desk and Middle East expert. Thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And recapping what happened today on Wall Street, the big news, Uncle Sam got a credit downgrade today. That is the big news from the Moody's rating agency, the Moody's ratings service, cutting the U.S. sovereign credit rating down one notch from the highest possible, citing the growing burden of financing the federal government's budget deficit and the rising cost of rolling over existing debt amid high interest rates. This as the drama continues to play out over the tax bill that has stalled a bit now in Washington. Stocks had a winning week with the Dow about 3% for the week. The Nasdaq popped about 7% and the S&P 500 up more than 5% for the week. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. I'll be back with more at 4 Monday afternoon right here. Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business.
Let's get inside of Jack Osbourne.
Bands would say Black Sabbath was a huge influence.
And thank God you liked it. Boy.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Peter gets on the phone. Elijah, would you like to play the role of Frodo?
Did you cry?
Probably screamed at the top of my lungs.
You play iconic characters, Black Canary and Black Siren. Who would you choose?
Probably Black Siren. She's like, I got this. And that's how Katie Cassidy feels. She's got this.
I like that.
The Inside of You podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.